So it turns out that Hwei isn't very good. Ever since his release, he has struggled to win games. Across nearly every elo, he has the lowest win rate in the game. Bronze and silver games, 42%. Emerald Plus, 41%. Surely you would think it would get better at Master Plus, right? Well, no. Still 41%. No matter which elo bracket you're discussing, players have not been able to win games on this champ. But is that completely true? Well, today, I made it a personal goal to find out. I have studied the pro players who have been successful on him. I have learned from the one tricks, watching their replays, guys who have put in a bunch of games on PBE and have over 300 games of experience on the champion, and I myself put in 50 games of ranked on my main. And it turns out, if you can pilot the champion, if you know how to play him, and you can input the buttons correctly, not only is he one of the best champions in the game and is currently, as he stands, one of the most OP champs, but he's also insanely fun and probably my new main. So really quickly, videos like these just would not be possible without sponsorships, which is why I'm excited that this video is sponsored by Raid, because without sponsors, I'm the only one who works on the channel. I do all the editing, gathering the footage, all the script writing, and of course, playing League itself during the time. So if you can understand that, I would appreciate that so much. I really appreciate all of your guys' support, and thank you so much. This video is brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends. You can download Raid, which is an extremely fun game to play completely for free on Android, iOS, and PC, using the link in the description down below or the QR code on screen. Did you know that Raid has over 700 champions? So I know for a fact there's absolutely no way you won't find some that you love. I mean, hey, over 50 million downloads worldwide, it's gotta be a great time, and you're definitely missing out. Some of my favorite champions I've seen are one that I got, which is called Errol, and he looks really cool. He has this awesome knight-looking aesthetic. And also Selena Nightcloak. Her cape is insanely cool. But the real kicker is the new Cursed City. It's a month-long excursion to the accursed city of Centranos, currently under the rule of Ammius the Lunar Archon, the final boss of the mode. Players will clear stages of differing types across 4 different districts and hunt down 3 Eclipse keys. Once you have those, you head into the Eclipse Tower at the center of the Cursed City and fight the Lunar Archon boss. And here's the best part, Raid is celebrating the festive season with Raid's Christmas Story event. It's a holiday theme event where you can follow Sir Nicholas through a festive story. It's got some mini games you can solve, you can win both real and in-game prizes, and you can head over to raidxmas.com and you can check out all sorts of themed events, tournaments, summon boosts, and other surprises. For new players, if you click my link in the description or scan the QR code right here, you can get 2 epic heroes, a very strong champion named Lightsworn, and once you hit level 15, an epic boss killer named Juliana. It is undeniable at this point that this champion is not winning as many games as other champs. But why? We've seen this happen with new champions before. They can come out insanely weak, take a little bit of skill to learn and practice, get overbuffed to compensate for the fact that players suck at the kit, and then be really OP once players get the hang of it. A prime example of this happening in the past was with Gwen. It took basically a month for players to realize what her best builds and play patterns were, such as foregoing Flash entirely. Once we saw improvement in the gameplay from the Gwen players, she was clearly OP, but that was largely because players needed time to adjust and Riot overbuffed the champion. With Hwei, it makes sense. He has 10 abilities, which is an entirely new skill floor to overcome. On top of that, he's a low mobility backline carry with a ton of skill shots, and typically, at least for solo queue, we're seeing higher win rates for champions with more mobility and can usually build tankier, as if you can build tank, the champion will be more forgiving for your mistakes. Anyway, one thing about this champion is absolutely true. He is very fun to play and quite challenging to learn. I think Pobelter said it best on his stream the other day where he was talking about Hwei, and he said that it showed him just how much he spams his abilities as a League player. and I really couldn't have said it better myself. You have to be so careful not to get yourself screwed over on being on the wrong ability with this guy. The amount of times in my first couple of games that I wanted to do a specific combo that would have either saved me or gotten me a kill, and I ended up inputting incorrectly is frustrating to say the least. But that is what the champion is all about and is truly the real learning curve. Take a look at this combo. One of your best all-in or one-shot combos is WE, EQ, QQ, R, QW. Did you get that? You buff yourself with the WE, the fear on the EQ helps to land the ultimate, and if the QQ isn't enough, if it's a slightly tankier target, you can then wait for them to run away and get low and snipe them with the QW. When piloting him, it is so easy to mess this kind of stuff up. In the heat of a very intense fight, you'll either end up throwing out the wrong ability entirely, losing track of what spells and cooldowns you actually had available, and at the end of the day, it's a skill shot based champion, and let me tell you, missing skill shots is always in the cards. Especially the ult. His ultimate has a very unforgiving hitbox and is a slower projectile than you might think. Even experienced Hwei players have been whiffing it. This is why in the previously stated combo, we talked about why it's so good to land your CC first to help guarantee the ultimate, and again, this is part of the learning curve. Another fantastic, albeit slightly more situational combo is to throw down the EW, which is the eyeball that creates a zone and seeks out an enemy for a root, and if you trust that the root will land and you get down the timing, you can combo this very nicely with your QW lightning strike. You need to actively play around your passive on this champion and use whatever combos you can to proc it. Your passive will proc when you hit an enemy with 2 spells. You'll also see a lot of high-level Hwei players press QQ and EE, or at least combo it in some sort of way like that. You can EE and then QQ, and that's a great way to proc your passive. Something I also didn't realize until a couple of games of playing him is that the bubbles you buff yourself with count as a spell, so you can auto-attack with them to get your passive. WE auto-attack and QQ will also proc your passive. A lot of players have noted several times that 2 of his abilities on W are rather weak. The shield and the speed up, WW and WQ. And while it's true that they're more situational than WE, which you'll be spamming basically throughout the entire game and you need to learn how to use it properly, they are definitely not completely useless. In this example, my WW shield came in very clutch as I was able to save my graves with the shield. And with the WQ, while the movement speed is a little bit underwhelming and is definitely not a little Sivir ult for you to speed up your team in any way, I think the best way to use it is to escape extremely dangerous situations. If you combo your EQ fear and then able to WQ backwards, you can run and get away. Hwei is all about being a long-range backline DPS and artillery mage, especially in the late game. He has safe, although rather passive laning with his solid wave clear, good mana sustain with the WE, legitimately great crowd control even if it's a bit hard to land, and god tier range. In the late game, he can nuke you from multiple screens away, and you literally can't even see the champ while it's happening to you. Lightning strike after lightning strike rains down on your team. He can kill everybody, and you don't even get to play against him. When this kind of stuff is happening, it makes the champion look insanely broken. This is by far the most unfair BS they've ever put into the game. If Hwei gets to this point in the late game, it makes you question the entire competence of the Riot Games company. How did they actually make this champ? Surely this is not fair. And then you play him against champions with good CC and a lot of dive, and this happens. For everything this champion excels at, backline damage, turbo bursting, ungodly range, he really shows you why mobility is also king in this game. If the enemies so much as look at you in melee range, unless you can hit your skill shot fear and run away, you are so screwed. You can be really good on Hwei, know all the combos, practice him all the time in the practice tool, but if you get the littlest bit behind against Zed, Yasuo, or Fizz, have fun. A lot of the time, this champion just feels like the Xerath rework. He has all of the same strengths, most of the same gameplay pattern, and pretty much all the same downsides and flaws. Just like games where you've seen Xerath completely carry in 1v9 over the years, Hwei will probably be able to do the same in that type of game state. He can 1v9 destroy your team from many screens away if you can perfectly play backline and you have enough tanks in front of you to block skill shots. But if you're getting dove all game, you can't play. He's basically Xerath, but about 30 times as complicated. If Xerath was released in 2023, this is what his kit would do. It's a modern artillery mage made for the modern game. And that's generally pretty cool and fine, because high skill cap champions are good for the game. It is great that players can invest time into learning Hwei and understanding such a complex and nuanced kit. But that will come at a price, and that price is the win rate. His damage late game is a touch overtuned, and while I understand that's all he does and he has no mobility, the late game, in my opinion, does not currently have enough counterplay to warrant how strong he is. That being said, he suffers from the exact same issues inside of solo queue that a champion like Azir, Corki, or Xerath have always struggled with, even when they've been picked inside of pro play. Agency. This champ, even when you're an expert on him, does not have the type of kit that has historically dominated solo queue games. Generally speaking, scaling and poke, which is what he does best, is not really how we've won ranked games over the years, especially when he's super skillful. I can think of a lot of other archetypes that almost always can contribute to winning far more games in the chaos of uncoordinated solo queue. Hook supports like Blitzcrank, bruisers like Riven and Jax, the entirety of the jungle role just because you can gank and you have objective control, and of course, Draven. These types of champions have the most agency precisely because of how bad solo queue is. It is really hard to play 1-3-1 in the lanes and play these traditionally pro-focused poke compositions without proper communication. We still don't have voice chat. But knowing how pro play works, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Hwei ends up doing quite well. Even if he has a bad solo queue win rate, this just sounds like Azir all over again. So is this champion just destined for pro play jail? Well, maybe, but it's still a little early to tell. One strength of this champion that we haven't gone over yet is that there's a real possibility for him to be a multi-role flex pick. Mid is the role that everybody predominantly plays him in, but Lehens, Beryl, and a few other Korean supports have already been successful playing him in the support role. On top of that, his best role may actually be APC bot lane akin to Ziggs or Karthus. At the time of recording this video, the highest win rate Hwei player in North American high elo is playing him in the bot lane role. Your support can both peel you to help make up for your lack of mobility, just like Ziggs, and it's set up nicely for you to land your skill shots because hitting your whole combo is a hell of a lot easier on a target that isn't allowed to move. Thanks, Nautilus. And to be fair, there's still so much that we don't know about this champion in terms of build, not just because he's brand new to the game, but also the new season that's coming up will completely change items entirely and brings tons of new stuff into the game, so maybe he'll be a lot better in the new season, at least in terms of win rate. Now with the new season coming up, I don't want to get into builds too much here because obviously so much of that is subject to change, but I can still go over runes and keystones which shouldn't change too much with this new season. I have seen this champion successfully win with nearly every viable keystone that you could imagine, so let's go over what makes each one of them actually good and what you should be building. The most common setup that we're seeing is with Arcane Comet, and it's basically what everybody has begun defaulting to. I do think it's good, and I think it clearly has its merit. There's a reason why it's being built so much. But just because Comet is the most standard and is what a lot of people are now defaulting to, does not necessarily mean that's the only viable page. Electrocute is disgustingly good during the early game, and Hwei specifically synergizes very well with Cheap Shot. Electrocute procs very easily due to your passive, so combining that with the cheap shot damage, early solo kills are absolutely in the cards, and you can look to play quite aggressive. If you're looking for the best scaling build, First Strike is good, especially if they have a bunch of melee champions and tanks where you're going to be proccing it a lot. Now the only problem with this keystone is that it's very low agency in the early game, it's extremely weak, and is basically playing for full scaling. If the game is over before 20 minutes and you're not able to have impact on the game, well, that's also why the keystone isn't necessarily that good and a lot of people are defaulting to other stuff. The best page for snowballing, if you can get stacks, is Dark Harvest, just like a Karthus or a Brand. Man, this can become disgusting if you have 20 or more stacks. I've seen my Dark Harvest alone do over 4,000 damage sometimes, and this has been the preferred build for a lot of Hwei bot lane players where there are 2 people to stack Dark Harvest on. And other keystones can be situationally good. I've seen the champion win with nearly everything, from Phase Rush to Summon Airy to even Unsealed Spellbook. It all just depends on the game state, the situation, and whatever the comps call for, so make sure you don't fall into the cookie cutter pattern of just building the same thing every game. You can actually branch out and try your own things. To conclude this video, I will wrap up my thoughts into a couple of key points. First of all, Hwei is objectively overpowered. If you've seen anybody who is playing this champion at a high level, who has put in the time, and if you're seeing the way that he's popping off in high elo games, yeah, he's really, really strong. Now, to what degree is the true question here? Is he the best champ in the entire game? I don't think so. I don't think that he is. His late game damage is absurd, and I think that he snowballs very hard. I think EE as an ability lacks a little bit of counterplay and could maybe use some slight adjusting from Riot. And as much as I love the champ, I'm going to continue playing him. I really enjoy him. He's made League so much more fun for me to be able to play this new champion, main him, and practice him for this video. I gotta admit the visual clutter is pretty bad. It's not a lot of fun to play against Hwei because getting spammed with this rumble ulti, the sound effect is annoying, it's constantly on your screen, it's distracting. Yeah, honestly, it's not that interesting to play against, and it does feel frustrating. Yes, it's true that his win rate is bad, but it's for two major reasons, at least in my book. Number one is, of course, skill issue. The reason that his win rate sucks is because people are really, really, really bad at him, and that's okay. It's going to take some time. The second reason is the archetype, as I said. The long-range, immobile, scaling poke mage isn't usually conducive to winning solo queue games and dominating the FF15 culture that we have the way that Talon, Pyke, or Rengar may do. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below. Follow my Twitch, I'll be streaming a bunch over the next couple of months as I really want to interact with my community more and grow my stream over on Twitch. Thank you guys a bunch for watching, and I'll see you next time.